Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and welcome to our listeners. You're listening to the Feeling Good podcast. It's episode 457, and we welcome you from across the country, across the world, and throughout the galaxy. We're doing another Ask David episode, so again, we're welcoming our beloved Matt May to our microphones. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rhonda. Hey, David. It's great to be with you both.
Yeah, likewise. Absolutely.
And before we start our Ask David episode, I'd love to read an endorsement, which is about podcast 454 with Kyle Jones and Carly Zankman, which we just published a couple weeks ago. And Julia wrote us, "Dear David, I hope you're doing wonderful. I just wanted to praise the series you're doing on the podcast about dating. I especially love the second episode with Kyle and Carly, episode 454, because it was concrete and fun. My favorite topic will always be the not chasing, but being chased. I hope you will touch more on that in the next episodes. And I cannot wait to hear the podcast about flirting, which followed episode 454. So that was the episode about flirting was 455. And I would love it if you also make an episode for more advanced flirting skills, since the basic ones I can already do pretty well. Thank you for this wonderful series. All the best, Julia."
Yeah, that's a great note that I appreciated. Energy is so important in a podcast, and when we have guests who don't have much energy, it kind of flattens down the podcast. So we're going to be focusing on high energy guests for sure, and also, if you want to send an email so we can distinguish basic from advanced flirting techniques, we can talk more about advanced flirting techniques. But right now I would need to know what they are. But I wrote back to this person and said that the show notes for the flirting podcast, which will have been played by the time people see this one with Angela and Lee, there's a pamphlet that Angela produced with 13 dating tips, and that might be helpful to this person, or perhaps say which ones you'd like us to enlarge on or expand on a little bit.
Yeah. So, David, do you want to summarize what we're going to be talking about today, or shall I just dive in?
Yeah, right. I'll just go over a couple of the questions. We have one of my favorite questions, is the first one, in case you're involved in dating yourself, or have a loved one who's involved in dating, or a patient if you're a therapist. And perhaps the most common error in dating, which is not only an error but an addiction, is to chase people who you're excited by. And this actually forces people to reject you. And it's based on the Burns rule, which is people only want what they can't get, and they never want what they can get. So if you chase someone, you're what they can get, and so they'll be forced to reject you. And we'll talk all about that in a minute. But and then we're also going to have a great question from Anna, that although her specific problem will be different from yours, the basic question is not. And she has infertility and found out 25 years ago. And it was devastating because she'd always thought of becoming a mother. And although she has survived that on the anniversary of that event, she grieves and thinks, well, maybe she should be happy by now. And so the basic question is it, are there rules about, when we should be done with grieving, or when are our negative feelings okay and when are they not okay? That would be the interesting thing. And you're going to learn about, is autism on the increase? Is it really on the increase? That's a cool question. And then how do you motivate someone who procrastinates? And Owen asks some great detailed questions about the daily mood log. Do you have to do a full daily mood log every day? And is it okay to borrow the reframing from a previous one? And then coming back to a question that we get in dozens of formats over and over, different versions of this question: is friendship a basic human need? And whenever we talk about this, or as people also ask, is love a basic human need? Is love something we want, or is love something we need? And do people have powerful, angry feelings about this? And so we'll touch on that. Now, if we don't get to all of those questions, then we'll we'll go as far as we can through this tremendous list of cool questions, and we'll just save some for the next Ask David podcast.
Okay, let's jump in to Aurora's question about the dating problem. Hi, Dr. Burns. I've been dating a guy exclusively, both only seeing each other, but he doesn't bring up wanting commitment to being in a relationship. He wants to see me in all his free time, but tends to plan dates at the last minute if he does, and assumes we'll be hanging out at his place when we get together. He knows I like a relationship, but said we're working towards that, and that it's putting unnecessary pressure on him when I mention it. I'm not sure how long to wait, and asking directly for what I would like, him planning dates in advance, for example, doesn't really help, as he quickly gets defensive, and then I want to use the 5 secrets. Any advice? Oh, and thank you for everything you do. I love your books and podcasts so much. They've truly changed my life. You and Rhonda make me smile every day that I listen. And if you do by chance use my question, would you please not include my name? So I'm assuming this is a fake name.
Yeah. So no, Aurora, we will not use your first name. Aurora is actually her middle name. No, I'm just pulling your leg. This is a sexy fake name that she came up with.
Ooh, that's a great name.
And it's a nice name. Well, I just love this question. I'll let you folks take first crack at it. There's just so many things to say, but I think a lot of our listeners, even if you're now in a stable, permanent relationship, went through dating and are very familiar with how easy it is to get a crush on someone, and this is the person for me, and you start chasing them, and then they end up rejecting you. So what advice and input do we have for Aurora so she can master this component, this critically important component of dating?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad that Aurora, if that actually is her middle name, sent that in. And so
Yep.
I'm glad Aurora wrote in about this. I think a lot of times people feel kind of uncared for, unseen, and rejected when they're not getting what they want from their partner. And being able to communicate about that can be challenging. I think, as David was saying, oftentimes we'll go about that in a way that actually causes people to reject us. So I would wonder if Aurora might want to write down one interaction that she has had with her boyfriend, what he said, and then what she said next. And we could see if that is the case or not. I think, and that's the relationship journal, one of David's fantastic tools to help people who are struggling in a relationship. Another way to go about this would be to look at what are Aurora's thoughts and feelings when she's with her boyfriend and he hasn't planned a date. What goes through her mind, and to write those thoughts on paper using a daily mood log, another fantastic tool that David Burns has provided us with. There's some other more advanced tools like the blame cost benefit analysis that can be helpful. The decision-making form could be useful there. And then there's this tool called the gentle ultimatum. And it's possible that Aurora is getting to a place where she would have to issue a gentle ultimatum to say that, she really thinks highly of this fellow and could see a bright future. She's excited by him, wants to spend her life with him, but is sensing that that's not right for him, that he's not ready for a commitment yet. And that's sad because she wouldn't want to continue the relationship if that were the case, and to let go. And so those would be some of the thoughts I would have in sort of an outline form, and we could go in more detail on any of those methods.
Oh, I love all that.
Thanks, Matt.
I love everything that you said, Matt. I would add the form, and we talked about this a couple of episodes ago, 20 qualities in a mate, so that she could really identify what she's looking for in a relationship and do the calculation to see if this is actually the relationship that she wants to be in.
Yeah, that's a great tool as well. And that's in Intimate Connections.
Right.
One of David's most popular books, actually.
Yeah, let's spell that out, and specifically what it has to do with this relationship. In 20 qualities I'm looking for in an ideal mate, you list them, and then and you can have columns with different guys' names at the top, different people you've dated in the past or that you're dating now. In this case, it would be this fellow, but you could also compare some other fellows that you've dated. But you look at each of those qualities and rate them from 0 to 5. And then you add them up. The total will go from 0 to 100. And you can see how suitable the fellow is in terms of what you're looking for. It's amazingly powerful. And I'll show you the application to this relationship in just a second. But you might be looking for someone in a certain age range that would be suitable. And also maybe someone with similar values or similar religious beliefs can sometimes be very, very important. And you might want someone who has a good career and is self-sufficient, someone who has a great sense of humor, common interests, shared interests, things of this nature. But always, number one on your list has to be what, Rhonda?
Available.
Yes, availability, because presumably someone who's available is more desirable than someone who's unavailable. Like you might get a crush on a movie star. I've had a lot of patients like that, and spend their time fantasizing about some famous movie star who is clearly unavailable. And so this fellow would get a 0 in that category of available, or a 1 at most, since he's just kind of available on his terms for a date without planning ahead of time, and then see what his other characteristics are, and see what the score adds up to, and then you can give yourself criteria for what a score would have to be to date someone once, to date someone several times, to date someone regularly, or to get married. And it can be very helpful, especially if your standards are too low. In this case, this fellow doesn't have the main thing you're looking for. And sometimes your standards can be too high, looking for, perfection, and rejecting a lot of people because they fail in this or that category. Yeah. So here's David's input, which is consistent with what you two were saying, but a slightly different emphasis. Because Matt, you were suggesting relationship journal, which can see how she responds to things that he says, and I'm sure that would reveal all kinds of errors she's making that could be corrected. But it seems to me that you see this pattern in nearly all relationships toward the beginning. And I think of it as a test to see who's going to be in control, who's going to do the chasing, and who's going to do who's going to be the chased. And the person who does the chasing has no power and almost inevitably gets rejected. And that's the role, in my opinion, that you're in, Aurora. And the person who's chased has all the power. And often at the beginning of a relationship, when there's romantic excitement going on, there's a little game that gets played. And often, in this case, let's just look at it from the male-female, which we have in this relationship, but this same exact thing applies to male-male relationships, female-female, or whatever they may be. But he's kind of cracking the whip. He's saying, I'm going to make dates with you at the last minute, which is highly disrespectful. And then we're just kind of come on over to my house and hang out, and maybe have sex or whatever. But I'm not going to treat you like a lady, or treat you like special, or like our relationship is special. And now he's kind of tricked you into, feeling rejected and pining, and then asking him, for a commitment, and all of those actions just speed up the eventual termination of the relationship, the getting rejected. And so what can you do? Well, fortunately, there's something very awesome that you can do. And what's happening here is that you're wanting to move into a deeper, more committed relationship based on the 5 secrets of effective communication. But he's playing a game with you and using you. And so you have to play a game back. Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to play a game, and you certainly don't have to. But if you don't, you'll get taken advantage of. You have to be willing, when the other person plays a game, to then go into a game playing phase yourself and win that game. And then you can keep dating him or someone else until you find someone who will open up and be warm and vulnerable, and plan cool dates ahead of time, and treat you like a queen, and like the special person you really are, and give you the love and attention you deserve. But you have to make that happen. So for example, if I were you, and I'm not you, and in general I don't give advice, but I do give dating principles. If he's calling you at the last minute, and then you say yes, that you just got used again. So his respect for you just goes down another notch. And instead of doing that, you can just say, oh, I love hearing from you, and that's so sweet, but I'm actually kind of tied up. I have other plans. And in fact, I'm a little short on time right now. I was just stepping out. And then he's going to suddenly say, hey, wait a minute, what's happening here? Is she dating someone else? Why doesn't she want to come over and play that game again? But that simple maneuver right there can put you in charge of the relationship. And then if he, maybe the next week comes, he calls you at the last minute again, and you can just say, oh gosh, I've got some other plans, but you're fun to hang out with. And, if you'd like to do something, make sure you call me ahead of time so I can save time for you in my schedule. And that would be the essence of the strategy, and it's just becoming, instead of available, becoming unavailable. And my prediction too is if you do that, and then in the meantime, date other guys, whether or not you want to, and rate them too on your list of 20 qualities I'm looking for in an ideal mate. And as soon as he gets wind of the fact that you're, playing the field and dating other people, you don't have to tell him. He'll find out through the airwaves. The heavens will send him a message that Aurora's no longer at your beck and call, guy. You better get with it. And so that would be my suggestion, and often he won't propose to you until you've rejected him. And so it may be that the cards, this isn't the relationship that's going to turn into what you want it to be, but it's a growing pain. It's a stage in relationships that in my opinion, nearly all human beings have to go through in order to get to the level where you find someone who wants you as much or even more than you want them, and they're a good, cool, awesome person, and then you can make the decision, if you like, to get married, to settle down into a longer term relationship. But that's David's assessment.
That's brilliant, David. I love that, and I would also let her know that if she needs us to show up at his place and kind of force him into marriage, we could do that. We could bring shotguns. That's how they do it in Kentucky. Yeah, it's called a shotgun marriage. You just show up with a preacher and a bunch of family members and make this happen. One thing that you were saying there, David, is that there's a kind of a game being played, and when people are uncomfortable playing that game, another access point to it is you can take the game out by realizing the reason that we're chasing is because we're thinking that this other person is so special and will be the source of our joy and happiness.
Right.
Rather than creating that joy and happiness within ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And so if we've got the love addiction and we're telling ourselves, I couldn't be happy without John or so-and-so, to challenge that way of thinking. And that can be, we've had some podcasts on that. And that is what makes it possible to let go. And it's through that letting go that it's not a game anymore. You have genuine power when you just love that person, and it's fine. They can go and date someone else if they want that type of a relationship. And we're not shoulding them or chasing them anymore, but we know what we want for ourselves, and we love ourselves, and we're just going to let go if someone isn't on the same path or trajectory in life that we are.
And that's a practical truth. It's a Buddhist truth. It's a spiritual truth. It's true on so many levels. What you're saying, Matt, is when it's true of the universe. When we say, I need this or I need that, I've got to have this thing or I've got to have that thing to be happy, you're just setting yourself up for misery. I'd say one more thing you can do, Aurora, if you're really brave and awesome, is take the book Five Secrets, my book on the 5 Secrets of Effective Communication, Feeling Good Together, and learn to use the 5 secrets. And so when he says he's phobic about commitment, instead of putting pressure on him, which forces him to reject you, that's what you're doing. You're forcing this poor fellow to reject you, Aurora. And instead of doing that, you can become like a psychiatrist. People are always saying, why do these, ugly elderly psychiatrists have so many female patients falling in love with them, which is probably a stereotype. But I think it probably does happen. And it's because the psychiatrist isn't trying to put a move on them, or hopefully he's not. Or she's not, but just listening and letting them vent and trying to understand them. And when he says that he's afraid of commitment, you can do that. We could role play it right now for a second, if you like. But to say, well, tell me about that. I know you've often said that you don't like being pressured and you don't want to. You're not ready for a commitment. Tell me about that. I'd love to hear what is it about a committed relationship that turns you off and that you're anxious about. And by the way, I'm not pushing you anymore for a long-term commitment. I can see that was a big mistake on my part, and I think would probably be a mistake for both of us. But tell me more. What's been your experience in the past? Are you afraid of losing sexual interest after a period of time, or getting tied down? Or I would just love to hear what your thoughts and feelings are. And this is also another way of letting go of the other person, because you're not trying to grab them. You're just trying to be there and listen. But I can't go into the details out of promise to my daughter, but I taught her this stuff when she was a freshman in high school. And it saved her so much heartbreak, and it transformed her dating life from being a loner from where we moved into this new town, and she felt pretty isolated, and suddenly her social life just went from rags to riches, and remained that way, because she learned not to chase, but to make the guys chase her.
Beautifully stated, David. Thank you.
I don't think anybody else would give this kind of advice or suggestions, and I think it's incredibly helpful and really powerful for her to move into loving herself and understand what she's doing to push him away, and then to engage in the chase, not being chased.
Yeah,
dynamic.
Thank you, Rhonda. And I have two more quick comments on it.
Oh.
When I think that there's two dimensions to dating relationships, possibly to all relationships, but to keep it simple to dating, and it's still a simplification, but there's the game playing phase, and then there's also the surrender phase, the deep phase, the vulnerability phase, where you really connect on a deeper level. And when I was in clinical practice, as I've mentioned before, 60% of my patients were not in intimate relationships. And they were all ages, from very young to very old, but people were still looking for a loving relationship. And the biggest error they made was to think you can find someone and then jump right into that deep, loving, romantic fantasy, fully committed relationship. And the way I like to put it is, at the beginning of a relationship, it's 95% game playing and 5% intimacy and vulnerability. Right now, I put on a game playing shirt for this podcast, kind of forgetting that it's only on audio again. But I have this gorgeous shirt that my wife got me, and it's just mind blowing. And this would be a good sex uniform shirt, because
I am finding you quite attractive, David.
Don't get too excited, guys, because you can see me, but the audience can't. But anyway, that's you kind of at the game playing phase, and the idea is to make the other person attracted to you, and see who's going to do the chasing, who's going to have the power in this relationship. And I saw a David Attenborough thing. Maybe I even mentioned this on our last podcast. I can't recall, but I saw a David Attenborough program on public television, and it was on the frozen Earth, and it was just about animals hunting and mating, but he showed these birds of paradise, and I thought they were big, but they're not. They're fairly small birds, but they're incredibly beautiful. At least the males are. The females are just drab looking, and in order to mate, the male has to impress the female, and so they'll go on the lower branches of a tree and start fanning their feathers, and they're brilliant, luminous, gorgeous colors. And then the little female will fly down within a few feet of them and look at them and see if she's impressed enough with this one to mate. And it's amazing to watch. And the birds don't whine and complain and say, "Oh, I shouldn't have to spread my feathers." Well, you don't have to. you asshole, but you won't get screwed and you won't be able to have sex unless you do spread your feathers a little bit. So anyway, that's just an aspect of it. But if you're willing to play the game a little, that's actually a very loving thing to do, because you're realizing the person you're dating is just a human being, like a bird of paradise bird, governed by the same impulses. You've talked about this a lot, Matt, and the whole issue of our organic biological nature and then the free will nature, and that a lot of what we do is driven by basic evolutionary forces that have been shaped in the last 50 or more million years. And so if you take that into account a little bit, then your dating life will open up and you'll be a happy little bird of paradise bird.
to underscore that a little bit, when I work with shy young fellows who are struggling in the dating world and they have a lot of social anxiety, one of the things that you taught me to do is they have to have a sex uniform. I think that's what you call it, David?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any fashion sense, but I would send them to someone, Laura Greenfield in San Francisco, and they would all go out and get their clothes for the evening, and we'd go out and do rejection collection and shame attacking. But by the time they got their new outfit, their new sex uniform on, they started to immediately notice a difference. When they were walking down the street, they'd start getting all kinds of attention, and women would be looking at them for the first time. And they realized what a big difference that makes. And it feels good in that sense to be desired and to have people kind of chasing after you. And it built their confidence up. Again, these are pretty shy folks with social anxiety.
Yeah. And there was a female version of that too. After Feeling Good came out, weird things happen when you get a good selling book. And they started calling me from, I think it was Harper's Bazaar magazine. I don't know if that's still, do you know if that's still on the newsstands, Rhonda?
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah, and they would have every season they'd have a fashion thing come out, and they would and then they would call me to explain to them about women's fashion, which I love doing, but it was really weird because if they'd seen what I looked like, they would have said, "We don't want to ever talk to this guy." But I love talking about women's fashion too, because I kind of picked up a little from my mom, who used to sell women's sportswear part-time in a department store. But women can do the same thing. To dress a little sexy and dress like you're the queen bee, and again, it's all about playing a role. And one season in the spring, they called me and asked, why should women dress up like jungle animals? And the spread that they were going to have, and that they did have in the magazine, they had all these famous movie stars, females. I can't remember their names right now, but they were like huge at the time, plus models. But they had them all dressed up like different jungle animals, and so they wanted me to say why this is a good idea, like why their fashion spread should speak to every woman. And I said, oh well, this is based on the teachings of Carl Jung, who said that we don't have a self, that's an illusion, but we have an infinite number of selves inside of us. And so every woman has a whore inside of her and a nun inside of her. And, all these other business person, all these different, and it's the same is true of men. And a clothes is just a uniform that you're wearing that accentuates one of yourselves. And that when a woman is dressed up like, say, a jungle animal, like a tiger, that's giving off the image and the message, I'm beautiful, number one, but also I have sharp fangs and sharp teeth, and I can kill. I'm a predator. I'm a hunter. I'm powerful too. Do you see? So it's giving off those messages. And then some days you might want to be dressing like a nun, and you're kind of in this humble, spiritual type mindset. And other days you might want to dress up in a very sexy, provocative way. And that's also a way that women can play the game. And as an aside, I found women were more open to this than men. Like women were more flexible to then start dressing in a sexy way, along with learning the flirting skills. But all the people I worked with did really, really well, Aurora, and because they had me and themselves on a team, and the two of us could do really well. And they were all very successful in the dating arena, although they hadn't been when they first came to me. So we wish you the best of luck, too. Please contact us, Aurora, and let us know what you think about our zany input here and how things go with this fellow. And we have so much warmth and respect for you, Aurora, for sharing this very tender part of your life that I think speaks to people of all age, whether you're in fourth grade, these phenomena go on, and whether you're 70 years old or over 80 like myself, these phenomena are going on all the time.
Right. So let's move on to another aspect of relationships that's more about grief, from Anna, who writes, "Hi, Dr. Burns. I hope you're well. I had the honor of corresponding with you and Dr. Rhonda last year about my relationship with my mother, and I'm still so grateful for your generosity and the space you gave me on the podcast. Today I write about a different part of my story. I'm 48 years old now, and about 25 years ago, I was diagnosed with infertility, a devastating moment for someone who had dreamed of becoming a mother since childhood. Through therapy, prayer, and especially your book, Feeling Good, I've done deep healing. I truly feel at peace most of the time. My life is full and joyful. But I've noticed that certain dates, especially Mother's Day and Christmas, still bring sadness. Not overwhelming or constant, but a familiar ache that surprises me even now. I use my CBT tools and move through it, but part of me wonders, should I be over this by now? Or is it normal that something so deep still stirs even after years of healing? I sometimes question whether I'm simply very good at coping. I'm an Enneagram 3, always performing strength. Or if there's still more I need to process, like the moment both of my sisters-in-law, announced their pregnancy, and during the darkest part of my grief. But then again, maybe occasional sadness is just part of living with love and loss. Thank you for reading and for your work, which has meant so much to me. Warmly, Anna."
That's a beautiful note, Anna. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it over to Matt and Rhonda to give the first responses, and then I'll see if I can add anything.
Yeah, Rhonda, do you want to take this one?
Okay. When I was reading Anna's email to you, David, I was remembering that one time you said to me that you're never entitled to be happy 7 days out of the week, every single day for the rest of your life, that going to therapy, learning team CBT tools doesn't prevent pain or sadness from happening. And if you could be happy 5 days out of 7, you're doing great and better than most people. And so there's the expectation that there are some times in our lives when it's appropriate to feel sad, or it's appropriate to even feel depressed or angry or irritated or betrayed. And we're not saying don't ever feel those feelings. We're saying here are the tools to pull yourself out of them when you want to. And so I think it's appropriate for Anna to have strong feelings on these occasions when she hears from her sisters-in-law that they're pregnant, on Mother's Day, at Christmas time, and just allow herself to feel those feelings. And that's part of acceptance of life. And if she feels like they're getting in the way of her functioning or robbing her of joy, then she can move into using the tools that she's learned from your book, Feeling Good, and other aspects of her healing to move forward.
Thanks. What's your input? Okay, I loved your comments there, Rhonda, about Anna. Thought they were beautiful, and I would push it even further, and to say that the feeling sad on Mother's Day and sad on Christmas is a positive, beautiful thing. It's not that should I be over this by now, but maybe you'd be more willing to welcome it. The sadness is a part of human life. Mm-hmm. Healthy sadness, and I think all human beings have a kind of, or most of us have a kind of loneliness inside, and that things that where we hoped for something that didn't come to pass, and we have to cope with loss and feeling sad, and I think those feelings can draw us closer together. Now, what you said, Rhonda, was great. I mean, if you're healthy sadness is not the same as clinical depression. And if your sadness is getting in the way, then you might need to grab a daily mood log and see if you've got some distorted messages. But I would say that Anna, your only distorted message is the statement, maybe I should be over this by now. And to my way of thinking, it's a beautiful thing that you are still sad, and it's a testament to your love of life, your love of children, your love of motherhood, and if you could press a magic button and lose those feelings, I don't think you'd want that. Because that's a part of your beauty, and we all experience losses. Like right now, I've been working 4 or 5 years full time on the Feeling Great app, and it's working great. We have a new V2 out now, and it's just producing incredible rapid reductions in feelings of depression and anxiety and many other negative feelings as well, and with many, if not most, patients in as little as an hour and a half or 2 hours of sitting down with the app the first time. But we're not selling it, and it's very sad because we don't know how to get the message out to people that we've created something that I've been dreaming about for 45 years. I've fantasized about having an app that could perhaps outperform a human therapist, and how wonderful that would be. And it could be available for very little money or free to people all over the world. And now we've got it, and people don't seem to want it. And it's sad for me. And we may still find a solution to that problem. But, our money will run out before long, and we may have to say we're just too far ahead of the time, and then I would feel that sadness. I've given my all to this thing for I've been working 50, 60, 70 hours, 80 hours a week sometimes.
Wow.
And yet, that's a personal loss. But I welcome that loss if that's the way it goes. I can say to the universe, "Wow, we tried so hard to give you this gift, and now we're going to have to surrender and say it's up to you now, universe. We can't control everything." And we had really high hopes that and the people who have been using the app have given testimonials like you wouldn't believe. And just profound changes quickly. But at any rate, the point being, I'm not asking for anyone to feel sorry for me either, because it's been a tremendous adventure, and I've gotten a lot of data, and I've allowed to fulfill a lot of my fantasies and dreams of having huge databases to analyze, to learn the secrets of why and how people change, and I've been able to do that. And to grow a lot. I've been a lone wolf all my career, and now I'm on a team with other people. And I had to learn a lot about that. So life doesn't give us everything that we want, and that's really one of the beautiful things that can allow us to feel closer to each other. And I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, it does. That's on so many levels. I'm just pulled into sadness hearing about the app, but also, do you want to be the kind of person that celebrates your sadness when things happen in your life?
Yeah. So the sadness is celebration.
And we have 3 podcasts on that maybe Anna might be interested in listening to.
Yes, right. The one on the desert, where I talked about when I was on the desert. The Nevada desert.
Oh, you've talked about that. I was thinking of the ones that you've actually titled "Celebration of Sadness." One was 174 with Steve and Barbara Reinhardt. Yeah. And then the other 2 were 252 and 253 with Rose Marketic, when we were talking about her relationship with her father.
What was the first number of the podcast?
174.
174.
And then the 2 with Rose were 252 and 253.
Yeah, and then if we can find the one, we can put that show notes too. That was the theme of when I was in the Nevada desert as a young man. I was crying driving across the desert for 2 or 3 hours nonstop, and just suddenly realizing, as if I'd been asleep, of the loneliness that was inside of so many people that I knew that I hadn't really noticed. I think that sadness, it brings us closer to our spiritual self. Sadness without distortion in the thoughts is a really perhaps the highest spiritual experience a human being can have, to my way of thinking, for what it's worth.
Well, actually, I found it. It's in episode 304 when we were interviewing Angela Poach, and we were talking about spirituality. You told your amazing story of driving across the Nevada desert as a young man. Yeah. And so anyway, that story, that's 304.
Yeah. So I would say, David, for what it's worth, it would just be to say what you're saying about you is beautiful. I mean, if you could do positive reframing and say, what does your sadness show about you that in your core values that's positive and awesome? Because if you want to press that magic button and make it disappear, you can do that. But would you really want to do that?
Right.
I've just loved listening in to the answer to this question. I don't think I have much else to add to it, though.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Just going into that sadness, I think that would be the solution, to allow it rather than say I shouldn't be feeling this way anymore. I think that was the negative thought that she was having.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Well, should we try?
Let's do one more. Because I think Matt has something to say about this.
Okay, great. We can make this a little. Well, we have 20 minutes left in theory, so that we'll do one more, and we'll try to be quicker.
Okay.
The quicker picker upper.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Burns. I've noticed in the last few years the term autism being used much more commonly, and now seems to be a broader term. I watched a show last night where an actual autism center was showing the test they use. It was pictures of people's eyes, and you had to guess if they were feeling sad, happy, frustrated, etc. They said autistic people have a hard time telling what others are thinking and feeling. Well, I took the quiz, and I got half wrong. They also described autistic people as being awkward socially, having a hard time adjusting to new surroundings, disliking loud noises. Well, that also describes me, but by no means would I say I'm autistic. I think they're throwing personal preference and social anxiety into the umbrella term autism. I know you did that podcast on ADHD where you said you don't treat ADHD, you treat people. What are your thoughts on the way autism seems to be diagnosed these days? Of course, I'm sure you would just treat whatever problem the person wanted to work on, not the so-called disorder. But still, do you find it frustrating how often people are deemed to be autistic these days? Brittany.
Okay, well, why don't you two take first shot again, and then I'll see if there's anything I can add.
Well, Matt, I'm going to pass the baton to you because I know you have a lot of stuff to say about this.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't know the answer to the question, so I had to look it up. And I found some interesting information on it. It seems like there are more people being diagnosed with autism or on the autism spectrum these days. And one of the main reasons for that is that the definition has changed. They've moved the goalpost to have more sensitive tests to pick up folks who do not have as severe of symptoms, but may still be affected. And one of the reasons to do that is that there are things that can be done early in life that can help people a lot to live more full lives, especially socially, if it's detected early. And so we wanted to detect people and be able to help them earlier on. And so that's one reason that we're seeing sort of more autism these days. The other reasons are, one, people are just more aware of it. Very few people knew what autism was in the past, and now we've got shows like Dating on the Spectrum, and so people are aware of it, and so they ask their doctors more. Is this something that could be happening for me? And then we have more testing. We have more availability of testing. There may be one other variable that's increasing the rate of autism, and that is that we're actually better now at helping premature babies survive. However, a premature baby is more at risk of being on the autism spectrum, and so we're having possibly a small increase that's related to that. The good news is that vaccines are safe. We don't have to worry about. There was some paper published in The Lancet around 1998 saying that the MMR vaccine was causing autism, but that's not something that we actually have to worry about. That paper, the person who published it had their license revoked. Turns out that they had a competing vaccine for the MMR and were motivated by financial reasons to try to make the vaccine look dangerous.
Wow, really?
Correct, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And, they always say follow the money. But coming back to the autism, I think the thrust of what you were saying, Matt, is we probably don't have any evidence that autism is on the increase. I haven't looked at the data critically. It would take, a lot of looking at research articles and critiquing them. But what happens is things get to be fads. They get to be popular, and people become more aware of certain issues, and the definitions change. And so, maybe, I don't know, when I was a medical student, we were talking about autism in terms of children who were, almost impossible to communicate with. Just kind of, they just saw humans as objects that were throwing temper tantrums constantly. I don't mean this to sound judgmental, but I saw a number, when I was a medical student, of children diagnosed with autism, and they were, extremely severe situation, like overwhelmingly severe. But then as we get more familiar with concepts, we say, well, this might be a milder version of that, and this might be a milder version of that. And recently, my wife told me she thought I was probably on the spectrum, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. But I'm into practical things. What can we do to be helpful to people with autism? And that's like to help them with what they want help with, not what we want help with. Our job is not to save all the autistic people in the world, or all the depressed people, or all the panic attack people, but to see how can I help you. And if someone has autism and they're or maybe just severe social anxiety, and you're wanting to improve your relationships with people, well, that's an easy thing to do if you're committed to learning the 5 secrets of effective communication, because it's simple rules you can apply. The disarming technique, thought and feeling empathy, I feel statements, inquiry, stroking, things of that nature that can, tune up your communication effectiveness dramatically in a reasonably short period of time, although you do have to work at it to learn to do the 5 secrets skillfully. But anyway, that's my take on it. The Asperger's too. I don't know what the relationship between that and autism is, and probably even the experts are probably puzzled by that. But Asperger again is you see it sometimes in young people who just have a real hard time socially. They don't necessarily have any social anxiety. They're just kind of inappropriate and don't know how to relate in situations and come across as different, or not like there's something they don't grasp about the social context. But I'll turn it back to you experts, since my expertise here, I've pretty kind of given all the expertise I have.
And the test that Brittany mentioned about facial recognition and how she took it and got half of the wrong in the Wednesday group, that is being taught with Kai Chen and the rest of our brilliant members. Someone asked us all as homework to take that facial recognition test for autism. And I think the majority of people in the group failed it. And then I passed it on to you two. And Matt, you had an experience of taking it too, didn't you? That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I tried to take that test, and then I got kind of distracted halfway through the test. And then I tried to come back to it again, and the same thing happened. And so I diagnosed myself with ADHD.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. I think it's just so popular to take, kind of tests that might not be reliable or terribly reliable or terribly valid. I haven't seen that. I remember your email, but I didn't look up the test. But I have always had trouble with facial recognition myself. My mom said that I was a 17-hour delivery, and they had to take me out with forceps finally, and they kind of squished the right half of my brain, my head, and I guess it kind of popped out as I grew older. But that's where the facial recognition is, there on the right half of your brain, or that's my understanding. And I have trouble, recognizing people's faces. And then there's the study I did in the Stanford inpatient unit that I've referred to on multiple occasions, where we tested the ability of experts to guess how patients are feeling, how depressed they are, how angry they are, how suicidal they are, how anxious they are, even after a 2 or 3 hour interview focused exclusively on those kinds of feelings. And the accuracy of these so-called experts was, zero or barely, just slightly above zero on all of these negative emotions. This is the whole thing of mind reading. We think we know how other people feel, but we don't. And that's not an autism problem. That's a problem of the human race. And it just, we go around just thinking we know how other people feel, how they feel about us. But if you really ask people and get data on it, you'd find out that your perceptions are typically way off base. And you can get better at that using the 5 secrets of effective communication. But it's just humans don't actually have the ability to know with any refined level of skill how other people are feeling just based on everyday conversation or even based on a psychotherapy session.
I love that, David. One question that I think is coming up for this individual is, do we feel frustrated with the amount of sort of labeling that's going on and diagnosing? And I wonder your thoughts on that, David.
Well, I'm frustrated and angered. I'd say enraged, but as I've gotten older, I've become more peaceful and accepted more. But I think our whole field of psychiatry and psychology, as it relates to the treatment of people with psychotherapy or psychotherapy plus medications, consists of cults, people who believe all kinds of things that aren't true, people who aren't measuring things. And I think our field is a mess. It does not need evolution or improvement, in my opinion. Now, get that. Dr. David Burns just said that the field of psychiatry and psychology has no need for improvement. Why would he say that? Because it needs total destruction and starting over. That would be my point of view. Like, we've got junk, all these schools of therapy. People are going to hate me for saying this, but I'm so old now, it doesn't make any difference if you hate me. But that, all these schools of therapy that are believing things that are just not true, that just some guru said this or that, like the whole idea that depression is caused by problems in intimate relationships, that you don't have a loving support network, and that's a major cause of depression. And I tested that with a tremendous experiment with 500 people, published it in the world's top psychology journal, and showed that wasn't true. But the article made no impact. It was, if anyone wants the reference, it's in Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology, a major article in the 1990s. No one's ever challenged it. They just ignore it because I didn't come to the conclusion of the people who the interpersonal therapists who always want to say love is the answer for depression, and it's not.
I love that, David.
I'm not against love, but it's not a treatment for depression. It's not the thing that causes depression for the most part.
Well, I don't hate you for saying that, David. I love you for saying that and for really sticking true to the science, because I think that's where we'll find the truth. And the listener, I think, is raising a good point that oftentimes people can label others and say, oh, they've got this diagnosis or this disease, and then if the person buys into that, they might lose hope. They might think, oh, well, I've got this disorder and therefore I cannot do these things that I want to do. And I would say that that's a good time to revise the thought and let go of that label and to bring hope back into your life, that you can have the life you want, and to ignore those labels and the criticism of others.
Yeah, people love to label. I did a live demonstration workshop for the general public and for therapists as well on just this last Friday, and we had the most wonderful volunteer who to do personal work, and she was thinking, she wasn't good enough to be accepted, so she's very perfectionistic and winning all of these awards, but never finding the warmth and love that she's looking for. And it was an amazing session, and all of her feelings went, pretty much to zero. All of her intense depression and anxiety and shame and aloneness, feeling unwanted, and she was really wonderful. But Jill and I were shocked to learn And we had fantastic, we had 2,000 people registered.
No, that's great.
For the workshop. But and the feedback that we got was, Jill said it's the greatest feedback we've ever had in a conference, and we've done so many together because it was so real. But afterwards, apparently, she got a lot of what Jill calls hate mail from people in the audience who were sending her emails with, oh, you have this or that diagnosis, some label they'd heard and some cult they belonged to. Like, oh, you have an attachment issue and blah, 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 and you've got to do this and you got to do that. And one of the points we made is you don't have to go into the past and spend months or years analyzing someone's childhood. You just want to heal them in the here and now, because whatever problem they have, it exists here in the room today, between us and you, between you and this audience, and let's use those things and cause healing right at this time. But people love these labels, and yes, I do get angry about it. But humans being what they are, which is both majestic and horrendous at the same time. As we can see in the world today, the horrors going on in the world, and at the same time, the genius, the tremendous capacity for compassion that a Rhonda would have, that a Matt May would have, and the brilliance. But yet, humans have a lot of, to my way of thinking, including myself, very, very negative flaws.
David, I'm sorry to stop you, but we have to end our podcast now.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to thank you and Matt.
Everyone.
I want to thank you and Matt for the stimulating conversation and the thought-provoking things that you're saying. You know, the podcast doesn't end when we stop talking, because people think about it and talk about it with their friends and colleagues. And I really want to thank you, too, for participating in that.
Yeah, thank all of you, and all of you who wrote in questions. We have a lot of good questions, starting with motivating a procrastinator for our next Ask David. And I was going to save the end to see how you're doing, Rhonda, but we'll talk about that after the podcast closes down.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. It's great to be here with both of you and with all of our listeners.
Yeah, love you both. You're both just awesome.
And we love you.
Thanks, David.
Speaking for Matt. This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.